Okay, so as far as I can tell, we're actually beginning play right now. And I'm going to work through each player. Do they want to pick their bonus card? So the Regency of Duke of Södermanland. This is the option for Sweden. It's get rid of the Regency Council. Play to remove from power Sigismund III Vasa. Your domestic policy is lowered by 1 level. In the next 2 impulses, you do not play any card, but discard 1 randomly selected. After that, you replace the ruler to Charles the Ninth, who will be on the other side. Now, Charles the Ninth is definitely better, but he only exists for 1 turn. You'd have to extend him. I'm not sure you can because he can't be weakened. He does increase your domestic policy by 1, where Sigismund will not do anything to it. Now see, this is weird. This says without any modifications, but my understanding is these take place at the end of each turn, and they're just sort of an addition to the policy. You know, they flip the counter over. They don't count as like a modification to the counter. This is a weird way to word it, to say without any modifications. Yeah, I mean, you can say, yeah, sure, you're not modifying it at the end of the turn. I don't know. You do not play any card, but discard 1. Yeah. So here's the issue, and you remove this. So you lose a 3-point card from your deck, which in terms of deck management is probably not optimal. You're also paying one hell of a price. You lose two card plays and have to discard for them. That throws Sweden into kind of a chaotic position. I honestly don't think I want this card. I think instead I'm going to just shuffle it into the deck. If it comes up, I'll think again. But, you know, there's no real cost to taking this card. But now this means I have a reshuffle, you know, that's going to take me a minute or 2 to do. It honestly will, because of the stiffness of the cards, the amount of cards, etc. Shuffles can happen quite a few times because, remember, what am I stepping on? It's a bit of plant. I drag so much shit into this room. I do upstairs too, but it's not carpeted upstairs, so it's easier to cope with if I bothered to cope still. But remember, you can spend a fund to look for a card every turn. I don't know how common it's going to be to have funds or to make that choice to spend the fund to look for a card, but, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if half the players in any given turn are, you know, reshuffling their decks due to reshuffle the deck cards that are in there, due to searching through the deck, etc. It's a painful cost when you throw that in, just in terms of just this mechanical aspect. Now, obviously it's worse in solo than it would be opposed. First turn, I'm just doing the Swedes right now. I'll move to the Russians next. On the first turn, you start with the cards drawing phase, so you ignore funds gaining. That's okay, because nobody would be gaining any funds at this point in the game anyway. So I've got my special card. I've looked at the one choice that I have on first turn. Every other turn I get to look at all the cards, all the red star cards, and choose, hey, is there one of these I want to play, but only by paying a fund. So everybody gets kind of like a free, not a full fund, but sort of, on the first turn for this. I should not have shuffled the decks initially, although I shuffled them more, you know, I say 2 minutes or whatever. It's less than that, because most of the deck, it's no longer a stacked deck like from the... Okay, so on every sheet, there's additional cards and victory points for fortified cities. So we take a look here, and we will be getting 6 additional cards for kind of existing in the game. Remember, that just goes away if we have no capital city left, which is, you know, it's up to the losing player to make the choice to end the war, basically. But if you have no fortified cities left at all, not just your capital's gone, but everything's gone. You're under some real heavy pressure because you won't have a turn basically next turn. And on top of that, your army is also going to disappear because it can't return home. So if your capital falls, so there's some really strong incentives towards surrendering in this game if you're losing the war. And the costs of surrendering are not necessarily that high. You're not going to lose national territory, which is also interesting. Okay, so I get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I look at my domestic policy, and that's empty. And I don't think that there's... Oh, I look at my ruler. I might lose a card here. Good thing I didn't look at them. No additional cards, and that's it. Okay. So I'm just going to get 6 additional cards. That's going to form my hand here, along with this. And, well, I got that Regency anyway. I didn't want to play it, but now that I have a handful of cards... And, you know, I could have grabbed it just to be a 3-point card. That might not have been a bad choice. Now that I have it, I can rethink because, yeah, you know, I got a couple of 1-point cards. Maybe those aren't that important. Maybe it is worth it at this point. Okay. Now we have to find that general sequence. And again, this is kind of painful. It's written only... and I know that I'm not set up for it here, as opposed to being presented on the board. But maybe it is on the board in some form that I'm not seeing. So what do we have here? We have Sweden, Russia, Ottomans. How about this? Holy Roman Empire, Polish, Lithuanian. So if I follow the diplomacy chart, that will give me the sequence of play in every turn. I've got to make the same choice with Russia. It's going to be a harder choice because Russia has 3 different cards that they can choose as their initial card. And I'm probably going to take one of them because at the very least it's a 3-point card. I think it was kind of foolish of me not to take that 3-point card, even if I don't necessarily want to use it for the event effect. And that's an interesting factor, is that for a fund you can guarantee yourself what's probably a 3-point card, even if you don't like any of the events that are sticking around. Questions, we have 3 cards. The first one I drew looks like it's definitely the best. Increase your domestic policy by 1 level. Move your economy DP marker 2 boxes to the right. That's pretty cool, right? It's a 3-point card, but for 3 points, I am not going to get much. That is 3 points in conjunction with a plus would allow me to move one of these 3 spaces. So this is not a shabby card at all. Of course, I'm giving up a 3-point card from my deck to do that. Let's look at what else we have here. You get a fund marker. If you play this card as operational points, you lose some economic DP, so I probably grabbed funds with this. And the exploration and colonization during the game turn, you can conduct those actions. If you play this card as operational points, your economy moves to the right, which is appealing. Okay, and Fyodor here, who can be weakened, but we have Boris as a possibility. Additional cards, no. Preserved cards, 1. Funds limit, maximum 3. Domestic policy will be going downhill if we keep Fyodor in charge. That's worrisome. Of course, my domestic policy, I think, is as bad as it can get. So that actually ends up tanking my economy instead, which sucks. So I'd like to get rid of him, because he really does suck. But he's not one of the options here. Increase your domestic policy by 1 level. Move your economy marker 1 box to the left. So this is a somewhat cheaper card to lose from your deck. It's only a 2. But you exchange more cards for worse economy. And that worse economy doesn't really hurt you here, because -1 victory point, but I'm not about to win the game. So maybe that's not too bad. I'm actually considering that ahead of this because of that. And then the last one is place revolt markers in Abo, Helsingfors, and Viborg. This is going to be some sort of revolt against the Swedes. Helsingfors. Okay. Abo, Helsingfors, and Viborg. Revel. Helsingfors is here. I don't see these others, and that's bothering me. We have a problem if these are not alphabetical. Helsingfors is here. They don't appear to be there. Okay, this is Abo. So Abo and Viborg both sound like Swedish places. I mean, I wish I could remember where things are, but I'm not seeing them on the fucking map. I'm looking here in Finland, and then okay, I'm worried that we have cards that don't fit the map, and that would be really problematic. I'm going to look to see where Abo and Viborg are in the rules. Is this in the errata? No, the only errata there is this. Yeah, I'm gonna try to look elsewhere, but yeah, I may have to start marking up cards, and that's a big or map locations, and that is not good at all. Unfortunately, I've got no easy way to see, because I would expect them to be here in the whatever this pink area is, or salmon area, for the Swedes, and I do not see them listed here. Now, maybe Vilpahori is Viborg, because I recognize one and I don't recognize the other. But yeah, I don't know. Unless you're familiar with Finnish geography, you're going to have trouble with this. So Helsingfors is here. Abo might be Turku, which is also not, no, it's over here, from what I can tell. And Viborg, I'm going to say, is Viipuri. It's essentially near Leningrad, within Russia now. So I think it's these three spaces. But, you know, clear misprint on here. And if this is a common occurrence, it's going to make the game nearly unplayable if I have to run upstairs and get a map every time I want to see things. I'm kind of loath to mark up either the card or the map at this point, but given that this is an agreement with the map, I'm most likely to mark up the card if I choose one. Right now I'm not going to do that, but yeah, there's a definite issue here in terms of errata. I didn't check to see if any additional errata has been published. Maybe I should do that at this point. There is not yet, and I'm not terribly surprised. I didn't remember there being many threads on this on BGG. Maybe there's something over on CSW, but you know, I'm not gonna, or maybe on WebGrog Nerds or whatever it's called now. But I'm not gonna go hunting everywhere for it. This is a fairly simple one, and I wouldn't be shocked if this is a matter of the translations. So the cards, the map, all these sheets, these are all in English. The game is not only published in English, it's also published in Polish, I know. And it could be that some errors filtered through into the English version. That's a shame because, you know, at least at one level, the opportunity for an English market edition of the game is much, much greater than for Polish. You know, I understand wanting to publish the game in the native tongue, but they really, you know, needed to go through perhaps, well, I mean, this is one issue, but there's also the grammatical issue in the rules, and I'm beginning to have the fear that there's going to be quite a few issues that come through, that maybe the Polish version got better playtesting because, you know, it's in Poland, right? You know, the designers are in Poland, and that the translation version may have a lot more oopses in it because it was never adequately playtested in that version. One way to find that out is to see, let's see, where are there credits anywhere? I like a game to have credits. So we have two people contributing to the English version. Both appear to be Polish native speakers, which is fine. I mean, you need to speak both languages to do this. What you don't see is any playtesters on any level of this. Now, that may be a warning flag across the board, honestly. Yeah, I know. Sometimes you don't want to credit playtesters, but there's space to do so. It's generally a nice way of saying thank you. And you don't want to do it for anyone who's ever playtested the game, but what you want to do it is for the groups that you're sending it to playtest the game, who aren't reliant, especially on, you know, early on playtesters who, you know, are working with the designer and developer to hammer the game out better. The leaders of those groups should be mentioned, and the leaders of any group that, like, was given a blind test of, hey, does this work? You know, tell us what's wrong at this point when they're given the finished product. And I don't see anything anywhere there. which raises kind of a flag. Maybe the only playtesting that was done was within the little gaming group that designed it. Now, it's impressive, but you really want that extra layer, and it may or may not have been done. May have been a decision just not to mark down because they sent out maybe 20 playtest copies and didn't want to list 20 names. But there was room to, if that was the case. I mean, there's plenty of space here, and it would be nice. It would be a nice thing to give people credit if they did help. And if my suspicions are right, at the very least, I don't think the English version got enough playtesting, because I couldn't see native English speakers making it through these rules without coming back with just pages and pages of questions and clarification, and just examples of why you wouldn't want to word this way or whatever. And maybe they would, put it through another round after they had the Polish-English translation done, another round of, let's clear this up with some native English speakers before we go forward. And that would have helped a lot. Of course, almost any war game is not going to be big budget. So it would have to be work of love, hey, we sent you a copy and you're willing to, put the effort in for very little more than getting your name in the credits and maybe a free copy of the game at the end. The great things about this hobby is that we do all kind of understand that nobody's making almost nobody's making a fortune off of it. And those people who are, it's because of some magical hit like Twilight Struggle, right? So, there's kind of this, hey, when I was in my 20s, I would have gladly taken on playtesting roles. But I never requested such, right? But there are plenty of people out there who are willing to do such a role. I found my niche where I can expend my effort where it fits best for me now, which is doing the videos. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely people in the hobby willing to essentially volunteer their time to try to make games better. And it's volunteer work, but it would have helped here, I think. A couple of things that aren't obvious here that maybe I'm making decisions on. Players can choose below cards but cannot exceed given limits. Maybe I could have chosen all three of them. I don't think that's reasonable. Normally, you're paying a fund for these cards to get a choice. So when you're given, it's not, there's no clear distinguishing between an inclusive and exclusive or in English. So it's hard to tell, there's no real way other than by putting more words in to say which one this is. The way it's worded kind of makes me think, yeah, maybe you should be able to pick as many as you like. I feel like that's a little too powerful. Anyway, I'm grabbing just this one, which I think is the most appealing to use for the event. If I didn't want to use the event, I might have pulled the 3-point card, but on the other hand, I don't know. In addition, I get my my special cards. I get 8 additional cards. 1, 2, 3. From the now reshuffled deck. But I get 2 less than that from my domestic policy. And I get nothing from Fyodor. I picked a card, though, and that cannot exceed limits, I think means that counts as one of my drawn cards. So, that's the Russians. And I'm going to work through this with every player because I feel like this initial choice is a really important one, and I want to highlight what it's going with. How many cards total you get? Yeah. I mean, if I can do that for free, sure. But if I'm taking all that time drawing the cards and reversing and undoing and whatever, yeah, I'll try to remember to tell just the amount of cards. Okay. That puts us to the Ottomans, who get this Boksai. The deck was not shuffled at all, and all the singular events are right at the bottom. I'm going to have to be really careful shuffling this. I've shuffled all the others beforehand. You can play this card as an event only during game turn 2. So this would have to be a held card. I have that capacity. How important is it? If you are at war against the Holy Roman Empire, place the Boksai commander and all Transylvanian combat units in the Kolosvar or Nagisesben. You can control them as your own army. So I don't want to pull it as a 2-point card. It's going to have to be my held card if I want to use it for anything. I think I say no. And I'm going to be getting then a full 9 additional cards on top of my 2 starter cards. I haven't talked about them. Crimean Tatars. Play to keep control of the Crimean Tatars. If you play this as operational points, you are not allowed to use the Tatar combat units. Okay, so if I hold this to the end of my turn, it doesn't cause me a problem. But if I play this for the ops points, I lose the Tatars for the rest of the turn. That doesn't sound like too bad an option to use with that card. But I can't pass until I've played all my specials. Satan grows in power. No, Sultan grows in power. Increase domestic policy by 1 level. If you play this as ops points, the ruler of the Ottoman Empire is weakened. Yeah, I think we want to increase domestic policy as much as possible, although sometimes weakening can kill, so that may be appealing. I am not going to play this. I'm going to get one hell of a long shuffle on this one, though. This is going to take the 2 minutes because the deck is really, really stacked. Geez, you know, I worked my way through the rule book and I forgot about the special rules for the Grand Campaign, which are essentially used everywhere, and they're just more chrome. And I just noticed that by drawing the Michael the Brave. One thing I want to note, I've complained earlier about the quality of the cards for shuffling. Actually, they're pretty good. They're slick, they're a little stiff, but they do arch well, and it's no issue. Okay. So there is actually a small set of chromey type rules that made it into here instead of elsewhere. And if you start looking at so other scenarios include these rules where they could be included, basically. But for example, if during turn here we go. If during game turn 7, the player controlling Kingdom of Sweden plays his event Swedish Deluge, player controlling the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth will be allowed to discard 1 randomly chosen card, and he will replace removed commanders. Okay, so just a bunch of extra special effects to the Swedish Deluge card. I hope that card throws you into this rule somehow. Otherwise, I will not remember. 2, this one does. It says right here, and this is what got me to it, moreover, you must apply special rule 2 from the Grand Campaign scenario. Nice doing there. After playing the event Ambitions of Michael the Brave, player rolls a die for other minor states, and Moldova and Transylvania may break subjugation as well. If Moldova breaks it, the Ottoman Empire takes over John Zamoyski and all his units for the rest of the game turn. Just some additional modifications for the card. 3. When on the superpower sheet of the Kingdom of Sweden, its ruler's card, Sigismund III Vasa, player can play as operational cards as operational points, but there's a risk of religious unrest. Oh, now I'm thinking I screwed up by not taking that card, but I got it anyway, so okay. Player controlling the kingdom moves religion DP marker on the development track. The number of boxes is equal to half of the number of operational points of just played cards. This is a special situation when card without a plus sign affects the position of religious DP marker. The player controlling the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth chooses a moment and points out a space where conversion into Catholicism is attempted. Huh? Player controlling the kingdom immediately conducts the procedure described in 6.621. If the attempt is successful, control marker will be flipped on the backside, and Catholicism will be marked on space religion chart. Player controlling the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth can add current ruler to any army. During commander's changing phase, player must discard one freely chosen card. An appropriate counter is immediately placed on the board. Okay, this is the fourth special power. The fourth special power is the Poles can bring their king into play as a ruler, but they don't get him automatically, which is going to be disturbing because he looks like he comes into play automatically. There's always a cost to using your king as the Poles. Apparently not for anyone else, and this is, again, disturbing. Okay. We will go back to this in a moment because I don't think I can figure this out easily. But let's go to the other optional rules here. If the the optional rules, if the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth controls Danzig and player controlling the Commonwealth places event Sejm and War Taxes cards, he gets a fund. I'm good with that. I'll probably play with all the options if I can remember them. During his or her own impulse, player controlling the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth can discard one freely chosen card. Immediately, he or she can place current ruler as commander on any non-rebellious army. How is this different from this? It's different in that... Okay, it's different in that this happens during the commander's changing phase, but I got some problem. I don't remember the sequence of play, and it's not on the board anywhere. Commander's changing comes after the card's drawing. Okay, so I will have cards to make that choice. This gives me a little bit more flexibility to be able to bring a leader in. I like that. I really do. That's actually how I read this because I try to forget things. Okay. When land battles resolved on any space within the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, combat value of the shown unit is 1. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what that unit's supposed to be, but sure. Why not? People didn't manage to get very far into Poland. Not in this period. Okay. During the ruler's domestic policy phase, player controlling Polish... Okay, so these are the optional rules to make Poland a better country. Controlling Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth will gain 1 victory point, war fate marker taken by the player, if they control the Cossacks. So that's going to be a per turn thing. It makes it really important to keep the Cossacks out of the Poles' hands. Again, I'm okay. After the completion of game turn 7, player controlling the Holy Roman Empire gains 1 victory point for each broken vassal subjugation between the Ottoman Empire and Moldova, Wallachia, and Transylvania. I don't know if the vassal subjugations can be re-established, but yeah, sure, okay, you know. I don't know what these do to balance, right? And of course, they affect other people's decisions as to what's going on. But I'm good with all of them. Generally, optional rules improve the historical aspect of things. They might throw balance into questioning games. I'm okay with that, simply because first time playing, I'm not going to know what to do well anyway. And also, other players are always going to be on hand to modify the balance. If I'm, from what I remember of Here I Stand, the game is not balanced at all times. There are certain periods of the game where one player can win, and certain periods where it becomes harder and harder for them to win. And I suspect this will have that same kind of dynamic. Okay, let's go back to this painful one. The Sigismund III Vasa. Play cards as operational points. Every time he does so, the religion marker is going to move back. Now remember, it starts at 0. Moving back doesn't throw you to 5 because of something. I remember coming to this decision, but now I'm not sure anymore. And I'm trying to, maybe the rules are written wrong, or my interpretation is wrong, but I remember having spent some effort on this. We have to find that rule, and that's going to be hard to find. It's here under playing cards as operations points. Player can move one of these markers. The marker can be moved. If marker is on box 5, do an action and go back to start. Okay, that doesn't help. That's not where it is. I don't remember where it is. And this is not an easy rule book to find things that you don't remember, because it's laid out, well, I don't know. It's just not easy. Let's just put it that way. Which means I'm going to have to spend a fair amount of time looking for nobody has any funds, so nobody's going to be able to discard a card. That's something I forgot about already. Again, so the sequence of play, see, this is the thing. This sequence of, that's not it. This sequence of play has just a single word and no sub things. So, for example, cards drawing, it would be nice if it gave enough of the procedure that you didn't need to go find the rule and look it up just as a reminder. Because what happens is, well, I remember most of the rule, and therefore, I forget about something like you can spend funds to discard some of your cards. Bloating this out a little bit more would probably cost less than or about the same as getting rid of this reversed sequence and putting that down as a sentence. Plus, there is some extra space, and the quality of the paper isn't great or whatever. It's not bad. It's real paper. At least I can write on it. Okay, but I am looking for where I got this thing about the track going backwards, and I'm gonna have to, I'm gonna have to back out of this and not be on video looking for it, which probably makes everybody happier, because this is going to probably take 15 minutes. And also my batteries are not in great shape right now, which means we might not even get through the initial card draw, because I've got one battery charging there and this one's almost dead. We may not get through the initial card draw with this little power sucker and the difficulties we're running into. What's missing, I think, is, and there's not a lot of detail on the components when you open it up. There's a thing that talks about the components. the superpower sheet, hey, here's this truck, and this is what it's used for. But there's no place that's really devoted to how that's used. It's interspersed into various other rules, when it's affected and how it's moved. And that's one of the problems, because I'm not finding how it can go backwards and what the implications are piece of things. That is what's hurting me right now. I'm trying to find this rule that I know I remember something. I start digging into examples even, right? Which is something I tend not to do, and here it's talking about the Kingdom of Sweden and removal of auxiliary markers the kingdom must lose. This is because of a famine or something. One domestic policy development point, see 6.11. Well, I go to 6.11 and it's just the removal of auxiliary, and it tells you that you lose a domestic policy point. It doesn't tell you the implications of it. And what's worse is it has no rule index to tell you what the effect of losing a domestic policy point is. There's nothing to go into there, and that's what I was hoping to find. Maybe a chain of rules, references that would get me back to the thing that tells me, that led me to believe that when you're on the 0 level, this gets set back and it does not go back to 5 DP. Now, it could be that the does not go back to 5 DP is just a missing sentence. And I know that, like, I put a lot of discussion into this at some point. I just don't fucking know where the rule is that led me to that decision. And without looking at it, it's hard to try to make a judgment. Am I misreading this? It definitely, if it should go back to 5, there needs to be something that says that. And if that's not in the rules right now, but is meant, it's a piece of errata that's missing from the rules currently. I'm worried I got this just from the example. Let's assume the Kingdom of Sweden has domestic policy, because there's nowhere else that tells you how things change. Loss of development points can cause change in these ratings. Okay. Let's read this first one. Since start 0, player controlling plays in a peasant vote. Because the Ottoman Empire has no economic development points to lose, the economy is affected. Economy markers move 1 box to the left. Now it is in the +1 fund marker box. Moreover, on military, economy, religious, domestic policy, the DP marker is placed on the 3 DP box. That seems to contradict what I was saying anyway. So I think it does wrap around backwards. Let's assume that the Kingdom of Sweden has domestic policy on 1 card more level, but the domestic policy DP is in start 0 DP box. On Uppsala is revolt. In removal, the kingdom must lose 1 domestic policy development point. 1 card more marker is removed from the superpowers sheet. Current level is no additional cards. Domestic DP is placed in the 4 DP box. And that's important because I think the 0 and the 5 are essentially the same, right? So I'm only losing 1, right? I lose 1 domestic policy point, and that throws me back not to the 5, but to the 4. That's important there. Now, taking action works fine for everything except for the religious stuff. The religious stuff is just this fucking blur. And I'm going to have issues with that no matter what. So I think I've come to the conclusion that the chart does wrap around. Those examples seem to show that. I don't know what the fuck. I still can't find whatever it was convinced me that it's reset a full level. Where you read the rules on that. Where you listen to me in the rules introduction on that, whatever that was, hey, you know, if you can tell me where I said it, that'd be great, but I don't expect anybody to look back and try to find that. But yeah, something led me to believe that, and I became adamant in that belief. I can't find the evidence that led me there, but the examples very clearly say it wraps around. That's what my impression was when I was just reading the rules. When I did it on camera with all the components in front of me, I came up with a different interpretation, and one that had massive implications. Okay. So this card, Wallachia, breaks vassal subjugation from the Ottoman Empire. You get Michael the Brave on the board with the Wallachian units. Wallachia is now at war against the Ottomans. Moreover, you apply the breaking of vassalage by other powers. So the question with this is, there's no limitation of when I want to do this. Do I necessarily want to go to war with the Ottomans to begin things? This would be the card to do that with. What's the Ottoman situation? Murad is not a bad leader by any means. The Ottomans are in better military position. This may not be the turn to start a war with them, but maybe I don't have a choice, right? Maybe the Ottomans are going to attack anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll a die. Odds I'm going to take this card, even I'm not. I choose to take it as a defensive precaution against the Ottomans, or maybe as a preemption, and then I'll figure out my card haul, which appears to be, and again, not looking at the cookbook, the procedural rules, and because I'd have to hunt down the sections and read everything out, and I know the sequence of play doesn't give me enough to give me reminders like that, being able to discard cards if I wish. What do I have here? Well, I have a pretty good draw. No additional cards from Rudolph. My domestic policy is going to go downhill, so I want to get rid of him, but I have no one I can replace him with, so he's just going to get worse. He is going to degenerate my country, and there's not a damn thing I can do about it. I cannot kill him. He's immortal. But what did I say for cards? I get 7, 8, 9 additional cards. 8 because I decided to hold a card. All right. One more power left. I'm going to try to squeeze it out of this battery. I've got the polls to do. I don't know if I spelled out. It's only 8 cards instead of 9. I don't remember if I actually said that. I think I did, but okay. For the polls, yeah, I must have. Sigismund Vasa fights for the throne. I've got 2 choices, both of them big 3-pointer cards. So there's the cost of weakening my deck. Although these decks are big, this event occurs when the Kingdom of Sweden was ruled by the Regency Council. Throw 1 die for each Swedish unit. If the result is 5 or 6, place a rebellion marker on that unit. Place a revolt on Stockholm and on any 3 national spaces for the Kingdom of Sweden. Well, seriously a screw Sweden over, but this early in the game, making that choice may not be worth it to give up a 3-point ops card. I don't feel as compelled. Union of Brest is my other. This event occurs when the ruler of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth is Sigismund III Vasa. Flip 1 control marker located in a Russian cultural zone to the dominant religion side. So there is no dominant religion, so I can't just do that, right? You can now convert spaces controlled by the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth where heresy is. Boy. For each successfully converted 2 spaces in the Russian cultural zone, you will receive 1 victory point. So, this is problematic. Flip 1 control marker located in the Russian cultural zone to the dominant religion side. Okay, I think that is successfully convert something, as opposed to flip it to the dominant religion in this space. I think that causes a conversion. This is something I want done. Do I need it right away? I think I'm allowed to convert spaces controlled by the Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth where heresy is. Anyhow, not sure. I think I don't remember anything that says I can't do that until the Union of Brest is in play. So this then, reading it that way, this becomes nothing more than triggers the victory points. I'm going to grab it because it's a 3-point card. I'm pretty sure I don't want to do the Sigismund fights for the throne. What number of cards am I going to get to? 9, 10? Which drops to 9 because I'm holding a card. That's it for now. Pretty soon we get into actually starting to play. What do we start with? Well, ruler's changing. It's going to be a ways before we get to actually beginning to play cards. What I'm probably going to do is play down through like 1 or 2 impulses on this video, but we may not even make it that far on this video. I think this first turn is going to break into a couple of different videos because I want to get the details and I want to get the struggle of dealing with this particular rule set and whatever to try to get to some level of able to play, because I think that's an important facet in terms of trying to understand the game. I feel like I'm putting the kind of effort I put in for those old Azure Wish games now to get to something like Here I Stand. Now I love those Azure Wish games, I really do. I may be too old and cranky to cope with that kind of effort ever again, but I really do love them, and I rate them very highly regardless of the effort. With something like Here I Stand, there wasn't that much effort to get into the game, right? There wasn't this kind of fighting with the rules to understand what was possibly meant. They were better, much as I don't like GMT's rules organization, they were better organized. The main problem I have is with the CDG concept of every time a new CDG came out, and Here I Stand, counted as one of them at that time for me. Every time I look at a new CDG, they have different ways of moving, intercepting, withdrawing, and stuff like that. They don't follow sort of the same kind of general patterns that most hex games do, where the exception may be just as big an exception as in the CDGs is, but because of the simplicity of the way CDGs represent things, it feels like a much smaller proportion of the game is ruled by that, because the core idea is you can move a hex paying the terrain movement costs and this, that, and the other. But with this, different kinds of connections that cost different ops points and all kind of stuff like that, where you can intercept, where you can't. It all becomes, it all became a swirl, and it felt like I had to read each game's very paragraph-style rules very differently each time. Like, it was very hard to assimilate these differences from the standard. And they didn't call them out because there was no standard, because every fucking CDG came out with its own way of handling these things. In this case, and more like Assyrian Wars, I'm facing something that's going to be a real struggle in and of itself to try to get to what probably is a fairly simple system underlying. But yeah, I mean, the organization maybe a little better than GMT's. At least there's numbers on everything, and there's not these big paragraph blocks. But I am finding it very hard to find anything and to trace things back to stuff. Stuff isn't stated as rules, as far as I can tell. This thing that I was looking at, it's only in the example that it is a wraparound both ways, and the fact that 5, you never actually are on 5, that you skip 5. Because 5 is the action space. Maybe religion is different. Religion is fucked up in so many ways. But yeah, it just there is going to be a very high cost to get to that kind of here I stand play. And honestly, the question comes to, will that be worth it? For the grand scope of an Europa Universalis or a La Grande Guerre, man, and even Empires in Arms had its issues. Having to really, really focus and try to parse the rules and maybe come up with your own shit to cover the gaps, all of that becomes easier. Becomes more acceptable. First of all, because there's so much detail and depth in the game that you can actually make assumptions about stuff. Here, CDGs tend to have a lot of abstraction going on in them. So the only thing that you really have to rely on is, for your knowledge is maybe your specific historical knowledge of certain cards and whatnot. Because the abstract levels of the game, where you're handling these tracks and whatnot, you don't know precisely what the designer meant unless he spells it out in the rules. And here, these rules are problematic in that way. All right, I'm going to get to reshuffling. Then I'm going to go away for a while and play my video game addiction. And I don't know, make it back tonight. One of the neat kind of things I noticed, so like the Sigismund Vasa for the Swedes has some negative connotations in terms of you have to discard a couple of cards or whatever, essentially on your next couple of impulses. Well, there are cards like this that discarding them doesn't really hurt you. So Sejm here, I think I talked about these already. If you play this card as operational points, you lose 1 fund marker, and your domestic policy is reduced by 1 level. Well, I don't have a fund marker, so, I guess I can't lose what I don't have. I don't remember anything about losing a fund marker causing some other hit. But the idea here is, if you don't call the Parliament, you are able to get more functionality out of your kingdom, but there are going to be problems. And likewise with this one, war taxes, you pay out wages, no army is rebellious, or if you play it as operations points, you place a rebellion on one of your armies accompanied by commander and composed of a minimum of 4 combat units. If 2 or more armies fulfill the requirement, you select one at random. Well, again, I can get 3 action points for free. There might be times when that's fine, like I don't have armies, or I don't have one that qualifies for this, i.e. I don't have a big enough army that I have to pay these big wages, but otherwise, I'm basically stealing their wages to get another card. But if I've got that thing where I don't remember where the rule is. Is it the special rule here? Yeah. So Sweden has this special rule. No, that's not it. I don't know. There was something. Oh yeah, the replace Sigismund with his replacement using that event card. You'd get Charles IX, who's definitely a better leader, but part of the cost of that is I have to discard a couple of cards as my next impulses. Well, if I have cards that are sort of these double-edged swords, do I want to play it or do I not? Do I take a penalty for taking those ops points? Discarding the card is not going to trigger the penalty, which is awesome. Of course, I am discarding a big 3-point card, but I'm also managing the no effect thing that prevents me from the bad effects of using that 3-point card that I get every turn. I really like the choice there. I really do. I think those are very cool cards, as opposed to the, always good special cards that come in Here I Stand. I think this is a very clever little twist on that idea. Okay, so continuing, trying to find the sequence of play here. Rulers changing. Let's look at the rules for this. We're going to have to work through it like a cookbook, because these concepts are not sticking very well for the most part. Some of that is the rules, but some of it is just new game, new concepts in play, even if it is based on other things. So a ruler can be changed according to the ruler's reign list. During ruler changing, a player can decide if current ruler stays one game turn more. Nobody's in that position right now. Now, it's this statement, in this way, ruler's reign period can be prolonged only by one game turn. That leads me to say, you're not just saying, oh, he's here for his second turn so he gets his down rating. No. It's the fact that it can be prolonged. I'm assuming they don't give a span of turns for a leader. And if you look through here, you can see on game turn 1, well, unfortunately, we don't have each game turn 1. But Regency has to be played to get rid of Sigismund's reign. Feodor has to be eliminated somehow. We don't know how. To get Boris Godunov. Murad has to be eliminated to get to Mehmet III. Uh-oh. We got a problem here. Oh, this is Murad. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't think that there's anything that's going to... On Commander's columns, there are numbers which form about game turns, counters. Okay, that's the next thing. So we keep this here because that's what we're going to next. So no leaders are changing right now. And yeah, I'm sorry, I have to work my way through it again so carefully, but I know that the stuff ain't sticking. Commander's changing. So now we go here. On Commander's counters, there are numbers which inform about game turns. So Boris Godunov is turn 1 or 2. It means that the commander can be used during the first and second turn. Now, I'm going to go through some of these. So Sigismund III Vasa has a turn 1 through 3, but I can't use him unless I throw a card away, is the special rule for Sweden. Let me look through some of these others, make sure. Yeah, I did order these. So Charles IX of Sweden, I am guessing he cannot be used as a leader unless he comes in as king. This is purely guessing. If there's another case like this buried further on, those leaders are just going to show up. Vassal IV of Russia, same situation. I'm looking at someone who could come in on turn 2. Oh, he shows up on turn 2 there. So I'm assuming he's not a leader because he's a king unless he comes in as a king. That's not stated anywhere that I'm aware of. Ruler, commander whose reign is prolonged by one game turn is not represented as commander. Yeah, no, that doesn't help. So there's Sigismund. Mehmet, well, there's no special rule about Mehmet, but again, he's not the current ruler. So perhaps he comes in, perhaps he doesn't. Do we have Murad on the board? We can't really see. No, we have a Pasha. It doesn't mark that he's a leader on there, so that's a little weird. Let's keep looking. No. And who knows with these? These come in on events, I think. I can't see if that's a question mark. Yeah, that's a question mark. They come in according to events as opposed to within their actual lifespan. And these, I don't know where this is or who it is. It's also not stacked completely. So turn 2 would be here. I'm assuming those are Cossack leaders, but I don't know. Michael the Brave is going to be Serbian or something. I don't know. Whatever he is. Okay, so I think we've got nothing happening on rulers. All right. Now we're at negotiations. Forced peace. Well, we have a war between Sweden and Russia. Huh. Wow. Maybe I should have taken that Michael the Brave. I didn't realize Austria and Turkey start the game at war. But I think I did choose to take it anyway as a protective measure. I think it's something I need to do. If a superpower is war and loses a minimum of national space, the player controlling can consider himself defeated. It doesn't seem like there's a way to get to peace other than by someone surrendering, which makes some sense. It means that the game doesn't have the very fluid kind of diplomacy that many games do, including Here I Stand for that matter, and Sword of Rome. Those games have other mechanisms to kind of force you into wanting to continue a war. Also, even EU, Empires in Arms, have the capacity for players to just agree to go to a white peace and say, yeah, we don't want to fight anymore. This doesn't have that kind of negotiating capability. It's much, much more tightly composed. Now, nobody is sitting on national territory of another player, so we're not going to come to peace that way. However, players could come to an alliance through agreement. That's going to take me some effort to get to, because in order to make any kind of judgment about the diplomatic situation, I have to look at each player's cards. So I'm going to step away because it doesn't make a lot of sense, and see what's going on. So the Swedes are at war with Russia. They probably want to consider that, right? And the Austrians and Turks are at war, but everyone else is kind of free and maybe wants to be involved in something that will gain them advantages. There's some places where there's a little bit of weirdness. So for example, this reaction battle card. Normally cards overrule anything in the rules, but this one says choose any one army participating in land battle. That army gains a column shift to the right in the combat results table. Elsewhere, the attacker and defender can play for their own cards, for their own battles, which is probably the usual there. But other players can only play cards in support of the non-phasing player. So this appears to give a reaction battle card capability to anyone, because it says choose any one army participating in land battle. The rule is about cards, so I don't know. And there's actually, I don't think there's something that says the cards can violate the rules the way there usually is in a CDG. So I'm left with kind of more puzzling questions. I'm not going to go look up the reaction battle thing. The player is going to use it for themselves if they possibly can. But I've got it in the back of my head as, Yeah, this is not nailed down well enough again. Analysis. Remember, there's bad things that happen if I don't do this. I don't remember what the bad things are anymore. I will have to look them up, but I know they're bad. Okay, player controlling the kingdom moves religious DP marker equal to half the number of ops of each card. So every time I play an ops card while I have this, I'm going to be having trouble with the Protestant situation. And that is not a situation I want to be in, which is why I'm glad I have this card. I might have gone and dug it out again after I read the special rules for the scenario. During first game turn, you must select this card and play it as an event. This is player hints. Yeah, I'm pretty convinced of that as well. Looking through the rest of my cards, though, I have a couple military cards. I have something that helps me if I win the war and I'm surrendered to. Oh, poor harvest may not mean much. I have this Zabrodowski Rebellion, which would work really well against Poland, but Poland is not my problem right now. So that's probably going to be used for points in some sense of the word. It might be discards for this. I don't have a lot of cards. But one thing I do have is the army reforms. Now, this happens historically, I think, during Gustavus's reign. But this is not a red star card. So I can increase the military by 1 full level and get an extra infantry unit deployed to the board, which costs 2 operations points. This is a 3 ops point card, so that's a pretty potent play of this card. And here, if you play this card as ops points, you move the military DP marker 2 boxes to the right. So no matter what, I'm going to get bonuses, even if I need the 3 operations. But this is a special card. This is my special card. Oh, that's a nice card. Most of them are kind of like, hey, well, the couple that I looked at for Poland are kind of like, hey, you want something bad to happen or do nothing, you know? So I think I'm going to be prosecuting my war against Russia. That's, you know, and try to convince Poland. Now, I don't think I can show them the card that I have against them, and I certainly can't trade it to them or anything. There's nowhere that says you can show cards, but I don't know. I can hint that I have a card that would hurt them. It's true. Not that one would be limited by that. And I don't think it's going to influence any of the diplomatic moves here. So the big question then comes to, hey, Poland, who probably is the only other power with an interest in Russia, are you willing to join in on this fight against Russia? Kind of mistaken conception about events. These events shits that are all printed event on the back, I thought they'd go in a cup or something. I don't see any indication of that. And I've got the registered Cossacks here. I'm expecting that there's an event counter that says that. Yeah, that I might play. So I'm gonna have to have these sort of spread out and available for observation. The same as these victory point markers here are. Just to indicate what's been happening and to keep cards available that represent that. So the registered Cossacks would come out of play. This ends the payment of the Cossack service. Shown is immediately added to any of shown unit is immediately added to any of your armies. At the beginning of each game turn, this unit is flipped to full strength, or in the case of elimination, returns weakened. So that's an interesting thing that I can build up my Polish army with. I've got a lot of cards that let me screw with the Russians, but I also have the Union of Brest, and I have the desire to kind of start converting spaces. So my feeling is let Sweden and Russia fight between themselves. I do have a couple interesting cards that raised questions, though. Play as announcement of the event, immediate, this is a reshuffle diplomacy card. Play as announcement of event, immediate end of war. Or play to break vassal subjugation between minor state and the Ottoman Empire. Or play if you want to join a war on the side of the minor state fighting against the superpower. Now, I remember this being mentioned before, but play as announcement of the event, immediate end of war. Sounds like I would be able to end the war. But if I look at immediate end of war, which I also luckily happen to get in the same hand, this event occurs only after playing the diplomacy card as an event, point A, in the previous impulse. Immediately ends the war against the superpower. So this you can play to signal you might be able to play that afterwards, as far as I can see. Now that's 6 points of cards to end a war. And let's take a look at the rules of war where they're covered. If they're, I know they are. I know there's a war phase, but now I'm like in 6. 6 is the entirety of the game. It's all the play of the game. So that would be here. So that would be here where I am in diplomacy. Forced peace. Okay. It is forbidden for 2 to be at war. To declare war on the next game turn, one of these 2 players must play one of these 2 impulses as event cards. Declaration of war or diplomacy. Diplomacy would only allow you to join it on the side of a minor state fighting against that superpower, from what I can read of it. So you can't just play diplomacy to get into a war. I don't see anything in the rules that sort of is warning me that this card exists, right? And this card, the diplomacy card, says, play as announcement of the event, immediate end of war. Well, okay, great. You know, what does that mean? If this is all I had with my trust of the rules and the writing here, I would think, oh, I guess the war's over then. As opposed to a card I need to play before I can play this one. And you know, I don't know. Better it would be play, I don't know what it would say, play to announce the event, immediate end of war. If that card is played in next impulse, the war ends. Nowhere does it really, here it says it immediately ends the war against the superpower. That's not a defined state either, except insofar as, let's try to find what we're looking for here. Negotiations, forced peace kind of tells me what happens when a war ends under a certain kind of condition, which is the forced peace, when somebody declares that they lost the war. I don't see anything here, and I wouldn't expect to, because this is a different phase. This isn't the card play phase. But the card doesn't tell me enough to tell me how to end the war. The best I can do is guess that it allows me to do it using the old thing. But, you know, is it a forced peace? Is there any reclaiming of stuff? Or is it just a white piece that comes due to these cards? All questions in my head, right? None of this is covered. It's all too sparse. They're trying to put too much punch, not in this, but in this, under the words of, it immediately ends the war against the superpower. Well, immediately ends is not defined, right? Ending a war is not defined in this game. So I'm left with questions of, does this create a situation where the winning, where the person playing this if they are losing the war, still lose spoils or not. I'm going to just play it as it just ends with no other effect. That seems the most likely, but is that really believable? I don't know. It seems the most likely in terms of, you know, what the designers probably intended if they didn't write any additional words in. But maybe they intend for this all to be triggered and for victory points and spaces to change hands. It just gives you another way to declare a peace at a point when maybe you couldn't because you were winning the war or not losing it back in the negotiations phase. I really don't know. I just don't know. Anyway, Poland has no interest in trying to join the Swedish alliance. I will look. Nobody is going to join the Austro-Ottoman War. So I think we're kind of in a position where I'm not going to keep looking at cards. Because we're not going to see any alliances happen. And cards don't get played, as far as I can tell, at this point. You can't play it and create, you know. Now I'm interested in something else. Okay. The way it says it immediately ends the war against the superpower, to me means this superpower, the superpower holding the card. It's not, I can't just end like the Swedish-Russian war or something because Russia's willing to come in and help me against the Ottomans or something along those lines. Does Poland want to go against the Ottomans? No, they don't want to get involved. Okay. Any free arrangements? I don't see anything that anybody's going to do at this point. No one wants to declare war. Poland would be the one country that could. But again, they've got their own nest they want to pad, and they got better things to do. Let the other players burn themselves out in war. That gets me to 6.6, religious unrest. Is that really a thing? Apparently it is. Okay. Dominant religion on the space religion. This is just explaining what's happening. A space is heretic. Okay, this is really weird. So this is a full section under 6. It's 6.6 directly, you know, not a 6.56 or something. It is a stage in the game, but I don't see anything that happens, right? So let's see what we got here. It talks to me about what religions are. It talks to me about what a heresy marker is. This is all background stuff. I don't mind that it's here. It's close to where it's needed or whatever. But then, during his or her own impulse, there is no impulse. Is it saying that I can start playing cards during this phase differently? I don't know. This appears to be stuff that happens over in 6.9. And that's what I read it as. But it's got its own section and its own point in time. So let's keep looking beyond that, see if there's anything else. Okay. Maybe this is the religious... So it's called religious unrest. Aha! Okay, so all this background stuff that involves things you can do in the player's impulse, I guess, is to set me up for this, the revolt checks. The number of heretic spaces controlled by superpower in a certain zone is used as a column in the combat results table. The player then rolls 2 dice. I'm sorry, 2 dices. I love it. Okay, so Sweden has no heresies. Russia has no heresies. Ottomans have heresies. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Are those right? They kind of don't seem it. So supposedly I have 6 in that zone. Let's take a look. Okay, Belgrade and Buda should be like this. There we go. That's better. So I said 6, now it's 8. 8 in that zone. And this is the actions that take place during this phase. 8 in that zone. I roll 2 dice, and that's the number of spaces that may revolt. So I'm at 8. I had better check to see that I don't have any kind of reaction card that allows me to interfere with this. I could see that being possible. I don't think I can play a normal card at this time, even though there's something that allows me to do conversions during my own impulses that's mentioned under this section 6.6. I think that's just background on the religious rules, which really doesn't belong here, and it's really disturbing me at this point now. It wasn't initially, but given that it has nothing to do, this conversion of heresy spaces has nothing to do with this section. This part does, but I think this whole section needs to be somewhere else, and I don't know where. I mentioned this before, but this seems so weird. Play to keep control of the Crimean Tartars. If you play this card as operational points, you're not allowed to use Tartar combat units. This is a really fucked up card, because you can hold it as long as you like and it has no effect. Then you can play it for the 3 points for your last action in the turn. Oh well, I lose, you know, my taters, sorry. At the, I always want to put the R in there, because there ain't no tater sauce. That's ketchup, man. But yeah, it really strikes me as something that should be different somehow. Like the fact that I just don't play it till the end of the turn means I'm okay. Every turn, it doesn't run into effect on the next turn or anything. I don't have to reestablish control. That's just disturbing as far as I can tell. Now, maybe I'm missing something. Because I remember something about, like, I don't know, about like reestablishing control over things. But this doesn't feel, even though it says keep control on the taters, it doesn't feel right. Now, I don't remember, like before, where to find that rule. There's no index or anything like that that'll help me find this. But there was something that discussed, and maybe it's under, here we go. All right, player controlling the Ottoman Empire can also control taters if he plays as event this. It's played as operational points. They cannot move the tater combat units. If specified conditions are met, player can take control over tater combat units. See Kamensky Uprising. I don't think I took that one. I don't remember what I chose to take. I need 2 hands to see. It's Russians, right? No. Yeah, that's Russians. Okay. If 1 or 2 tater national spaces ended by anyone controlling, the Ottomans get to add more and control them if the national spaces are captured. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't see anything that, you know, reverts to losing control. It says I can control them if I play as event this Crimean Tatars card, which is the one I had. If this card is played as operational points, the player cannot move tater combat units. I think I'm allowed to move. I don't know. I don't fucking know. The way that card is worded is just so fucking weird. And the way this is worded doesn't really help. Yeah, I'm just at a loss. I probably am not going to use them, so because it doesn't make any fucking sense. I don't know where the fuck I am. Yeah, the fucks are coming out because the rules are getting bad enough that I'm feeling like maybe this is an unplayable game. It is really coming close. Okay. Did I roll those dice? Is that what I needed to do? Yeah, that's what I need to do. So I came to like 8. I look for the rule that is weird. Like so much in this shit. Okay. So I roll on here, I guess. I try to find what's going on. All right, I get an 8 on the 8. That means 1 space. Now, who plays on me? Sweden plays on Russia. Russia plays on... Okay, so Russia gets to play a revolt marker. That is not this marker. It's this marker. What's this if it's... Is that like something else? Oh boy. Okay, the only way we can find things in this rule book is if they happen. That's an army rebellion. That's something else. I thought that's what it was. Okay, revolt can occur as a result of playing event heresy. If combat unit enters the space the revolt's ended, the effect will be to screw up domestic policy, and that's it. So I kind of want to put it someplace stupid. So I'm going to put it over here, which will just cause problems for the Ottomans if they don't do something about it. All right. I'm too tired to keep going. I thought I was going to be able to deal with the mercenaries, but I know that's going to require everybody make choices with cards and whatnot, and then we go into the impulses. So, plus my battery's running down. It's always 2 sets of batteries running down these days right now. It's not just the camera, but me too. My throat, my mental capacity to continue pushing through a game, whatever it is. They got about the same charge to them. Oh shit, we got somebody else who has a religious problem, which is the Poles. So I've got to do them. Now, I could count their territories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in the Russian zone, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the, I guess, Protestant zone. I don't know what that's called. Swedish zone, I don't know. It's not really particularly pro-Swedish. And is it all Protestant? Yeah, but... But some of these are too, so I don't know. Nothing good. There's no cards that I found, and I checked both the Ottomans as well. There's no cards that are going to help me here. What did I say? 12? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12. 2 dice. I'm going to lose some. 8 on 12 is 2 of these revolts. And who plays on me? I gotta look. The Holy Roman Empire. Well, I don't know how much they really are, concerned about any of this. Like, I don't mind if Russian spaces convert. It's not really a conversion, though. It's just, hey, you got to move your army here. But on the other hand, I don't particularly want Poland to be doing okay, or do I? I don't know. Poland is my safety valve against the Ottomans, right? So Why don't we make it not too hard on them to fix? Okay. Let's not make it too easy. Let's put it like this. Direct them down towards Ottoman territory. That'll generate a threat, maybe. I don't know. Not really, because they're not at war, so unless a diplomacy card isn't going to allow them to jump into war. Something that no one knows except the person who has the diplomacy card, because it's the first time everybody's playing. But, you know, I mean, the question comes down to how much are people going to study this game, right? With Here I Stand, you might have people who really, really know the game, right? Same with Sword of Rome. But with this, with the barrier the rules are putting, with the rarity that it's going to show in the US, I think, my guess is this is going to be a one-shot for most people. Now, that also, you also have to take into account that there's like, you know, at least 50% of gamers are kind of, well, I'll play something once, you know? And if they really, really love it, maybe they come back to it again and again. But in general, you got to count on games being able to be played the first time. So it's not an unreasonable assumption to have people not knowing what they can expect out of a deck. Again, I feel like so far, Here I Stand and Sword of Rome both allow you to play the game not necessarily well, but reasonably without knowing the deck. I'm not so sure here, because there's things like this diplomacy card, which is maybe your only way of getting a foot in the door to ending a war at certain times or whatever. But yeah, you know, you may not be getting it, so maybe it's not that big a deal. Okay, and now we have the other one here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Somewhat easier column. And we roll a 4. We're safe there. Once again, the Austrians would get to play with those and, you know, try to pull the Poles away. And now we move this back to Mercenaries hiring, and I feel a lot more accepting of the fact that, like, I'm stopping at this point. I felt really, really bad stopping before, but, you know, having to roll an extra couple of dice, that fixes it. We're on the mercenary hiring phase, and the Ottomans are excluded. They can't hire Christian mercenaries. Makes sense for the most part. More importantly, German Christian mercenaries. They probably were able to get some from their vassal states, etc. But and Poland isn't at war and has no desire for them. So it comes down to who else is willing to pay based on the cards that they have and their specific needs. So what I'm going to do is examine the army sets that are available and what they're liable to face. So if we look at the Austrians here, they have 6, 7, 8 in their main army. And, you know, we know what's already here. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm a little worried. So I think the Austrians want to hire some. We look at the Swedes, and their army is quite small, but very powerful at 9 strength points. Not a lot of capability to take damage. Plus, no, that's my garrison. I probably don't want to take that. I think I'm allowed to, but I probably don't want to. On the Russian side, well, we've got some garrison units up here. They're just single garrisons in each case. We get a couple of strength points here in Moscow. And then we have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have a weaker force, and being able to put some mercenaries in there might be of great value to us. Now, if we get the mercenary, I believe it just goes into an army, right? Yeah, you add it to an army. Okay. So that's about that. And then we can do the redeployment, which is going to be able to, push, say, the Swedes and the Russians up against each other, etc. So a lot of thinking has to go into this that I don't know how to do yet, right? I'm going to be blundering through this first turn. To bring up, there's a fair number of mercenaries. And each player can kind of say, I know the Ottomans can't draw one, and the Poles probably aren't going to. So the first three are going to be able to get 3-point armies. So you can pretty much put a 1-point card without any loss of power here. Now, can you use a special card for this? This is important because remember, those special cards you may not want to be playing for points. See, special card cannot be chosen. Yeah, it would be obvious that you're putting it there, but it's a high point card, so it would be an interesting choice for bidding if you could. So yeah, everybody's going to look and, try to figure out. I think everybody wants at least one. So we'll do one round of that, but I think everybody's going to probably play a 1-point card because unless somebody wants Cav, and I don't know of any advantage to cavalry in this game. Why is there Cav? Oh yeah, there is a slight advantage when you force somebody to retreat. If you win the battle or if they withdraw, if you have an advantage in cavalry, you cause some additional losses. So that's why you want Cav. And that's actually something that's very useful about these guys, even if they're always zeros, unlike using the optional roll that I'm going to be using. There's still number of Cav, which I think is the key factor here, not the strength points of Cav. So they will help in both screening a retreat and causing more damage in a pursuit. All right, enough chatter and I'll start doing the thinking. So I misread diplomacy here. You can play one impulse after the provocation card was played as an event. I ran across a provocation card here, which is a plus, but you can't play this in that impulse. Now your superpower is at a war against the superpower you have a cast a spell against. I don't know why. Play as an announcement of the immediate end of war. This is the weird one. Right. Okay. So, yeah, I was misreading this, I guess. I thought I had the immediate end of war combination in here, and I don't. I have the declaration of war here. So I don't know where I had the immediate end of war card. I don't know who had it. Maybe the Poles have it, and I'm just seeing another diplomacy card here, which is matched with the declaration of war. Either diplomacy or declaration of war goes in conjunction with provocation to allow you to start a war. The immediate end of war, I think, is a different card, though, and I think somebody else has the pair diplomacy and the immediate end of war. Okay. Austrians have a very powerful card against the Turks here. War against Persia. Place this card next to the board. The player controlling the Ottoman Empire must immediately put on this card units with a total manpower rating of 30 or more. In ruler's domestic policy phase, each unit on the card suffers a loss. Then the survivors are placed back into Istanbul. It's a one-shot card, but it could greatly change the outcome of this current war. Get me into a position where I have more cards, especially in conjunction with the revolt of the feudal countries. I'm running across, combinations and thoughts, and I just feel like I have to look at them. Yeah, here's the immediate end to war diplomacy combination. It was in the Polish hands. I thought it was in the Austrian hands. This is going to be a little painful when I have the hand of cards, the decks, I don't have a lot of room to space things out. And I'm just worried I'm going to get myself confused if I'm not careful, but we'll try our best. I still am working on trying to figure out. So the Russians have a good harvest. These guys are both throwing a poor harvest, which is a pretty shitty card. You can hurt somebody else's economy a little bit with it. But otherwise, you know, unless somebody's in the lead or whatever, or you're at war with them, and they're both at war with someone, it seems really pointless. And it seems like a perfect thing to throw in to try to get some mercenaries. Good Harvest, on the other hand, is going to increase the wealth of the Russians, and that may be actually a very good card for a 1-point card. But I don't have much else that I'd want to throw out. So I'm considering not putting a bid in. Now, another option, I do have a 1-point reaction card. You can play this card when an active player army just entered a space occupied by your army. Well, you know, I'm either going to fight or I'm not. So maybe this is a safe one to play. So I think on a 1 or a 2, the Russians decide not to put a bid down. I wish there was like a fake 0 bid or something. Because presumably people are slapping these down simultaneously. It doesn't really say. I'm not in the right place. I'm going to choose not to. And to use all my cards. And we want to keep the specials on top. For some reason or another. I'm going to choose not to play in the Mercenaries. And this means I won't play in either Mercenary round. I don't think it's forced to be that way. We could see. Like, the fact that other players are grabbing Mercenaries might convince me that I want to. All superpowers can hire. Each player selects 1 combat unit. There are 2 rounds of hiring. Yeah, I think you can probably pass on the first round and come back in the second. So we've got these 2 playing. Now, the order here is probably going to be standard sequence because they tied. General sequence, which means, let's see, the Swedes get the first pick. And this is where things are going to get kind of icky, because I've got to get a discard pile going for each one as well. It's not the crowding so much I'm worried about as the getting confused between these 2 decks. Okay. And I get to pick anything I want. I might as well take the cavalry, and I'll put that over in my army. I've got a really good army, which is kind of a shame. And same answer for the Austrians. Might as well take the cavalry and move it into there. And we also will be discarding over there. That brings us to the second round. Got to think real hard here because, you know, each card that I get rid of gets rid of an impulse that I get to play and other things. Of course, I can raise troops with points as well. So if I'm playing a 2-point card, I can raise troops of that quality anyhow. So not so much for the Russians. But now the Russians may be more worried about the Swedes, and they may want to throw their card. I don't know. Neither Sweden nor the Habsburgs had a 1-point card they wanted to expend. The Russians still kind of do, but they've decided to pass anyhow. Not sure I agree with that, but I did it randomly 50-50 since I didn't go for it on the first one. I'm like, well, do I really want an infantry? I don't know. And I can always buy a couple of units because I've got units that only cost 0.5 each, whereas the armies of most of the players are more expensive. The Turks also have some big ones. That gives me more meat if I choose to do that. Of course, I think if I build those units, they get built in the capital. Not sure about that. Let's look at playing cards, the active. The armies return to capital. So here's the problem. The different actions, I have to find them all. So movement is here. Interception is part of this movement action. It's not actually an action. It's like it's an opponent's part of a movement action, as is withdrawal, and honestly, so is land battle. Number-wise, these are not all put under movement. Movement is under actions directly. Interception is directly under actions. This is somewhat disturbing, to tell you the truth. Naval battle, which also is kind of movement, should be under action. Should be under the military actions. On the other, the movement functionality. On the other hand, sieges is definitely something you do without. Assault is something you do separate from movement. Control of a city is not an action. And I'm just getting there, and I don't see one of these major actions, which is recruiting a unit. Now, Army recruitment has a different rule, 5.2.1. So it's not in the normal sequence. Maybe I'm doing it in the wrong place. During your own impulse, no, I'm not. It's just pulled out of the impulse rules for some reason. Can be put on any national space without an enemy army. Okay. So yeah, I can recruit on the hoof, as it were, as long as I'm in my national space. All right. That puts us to the player's impulses. We're going to try one. The Swedes are up first. I got to figure out what I want to do with them. The Swedes are going to play this because there's something horrible that happens if I don't. And damned if I can remember what it is. I just know that I don't want to do it. You know. That's Swedish deluge. Yeah, because religious unrest can happen if I'm not careful. That's why. Okay. And I'd rather not face that. So, we'll play this, and actually this, like everything else, has a chit from the event chits. Okay. And I play to remove from power Sigismund III Vasa. My domestic policy is lowered by 1 level. My domestic policy was at 0, so I need 1 card less in play now. Doesn't affect the DP points. In the next 2 impulses, I do not play any card, but discard 1 randomly selected. Ooh, that sucks. And here's the interesting thing. Can I randomly select the special cards that are marked on the back that way? I don't know. Doesn't say. It depends on how you randomly select. After that, replace ruler to Charles the 9th of Sweden. Flip Sigismund over. Okay. So we're going to put that in play there just because it's a reminder. Sigismund's not gone yet, and that is the Swedish side of the turn. I probably should have a little marker to keep track of whose impulse it is as I move forward. That puts me over to the Russians. Hey, Sweden's kind of in disarray now. That's interesting. This considered the exploration and colonization of Asia. Doing this allows you to play in the build of colonies and everything, but if you play it as ops points, your economy DP moves 2 boxes to the right, which is somewhat impressive. This one, on the other hand, if you choose to play the points, you move 3 boxes to the left. Now, I don't know if I want to play... I don't want to know if I want to make these choices. I also have a plus card. And a plus card is problematic because that's like the only way you can do religion stuff. And again, I'm having trouble figuring out the religion stuff here. So during your own impulse, you play as operations points a card with a plus sign. After spending ops points on other actions, a plus sign is used to move religion DP markers 1 box to the right. Player points out a heretic space. This just doesn't fucking make sense to me. Like, is there an action if I move the religion marker here to the 5 DP box? Because I can spend operations, I believe. Okay, so none of move counter 1 box to the right on the Cossacks control is there. Nothing talks about spending points on these tracks. On anything. On the sheet. Now, I thought you could spend points on the tracks, and now I'm lost again. And some of this has to do with the fucking organization of the rules, because, like, if it was telling me which operations I could do, if one of them's spending points, that would make sense. But I'm almost thinking that I can't move those except by special ability. Now, the problem with conversion here is after spending operation points on other actions, a plus sign is used to move the religion DP 1 box. See 6.911111111. Okay, let's go look at that. Player's impulses. Oh, that's the thing. I'm not in the player's impulses. I'm in 6, which is what? 6 is like all the rules of the game. That's the section it is. So 6.911, playing cards as operations points, available actions. In case of playing 1 card with a plus sign after using operations points, players can move one of any of the markers. The marker can be moved by 1 box to the right on appropriate track on superpower sheet. If marker is in box 5 DP, do an action and go back to start. Okay, and that action is what? Well, player plays with plus sign, decides to move the marker to box. Marker is in 4. They decide to go to 5, do an action, go back to start. The marker must be placed back in start 0 DP. An economy marker can be moved 1 box to the right in the economy track. So this is an example. Nowhere does it say the action for the economy marker is to move this forward, right? All of these, the domestic policy, military policy, and economy, 3 of the 4, have an action which one can kind of assume, because I don't see any role for it, is move the main track or counter by 1 and go back to 0. Religion does not have that. Now, that's why maybe there's a special rule for religion, but the special rule for religion doesn't make sense, and we'll get to why in a moment. Okay, so that's that example. Example, let's say these are here. This is crisis and collapse when you're forced to move left. I bet you this is where it happens. Some game procedure forces player to move the marker on the left side direction. The marker's position remains unchanged, but domestic policy must be weakened. This is the one. This is the rule that caused the problem, and it still looks completely wrong. If the economy marker is on the leftmost box of the economy track, oh no. This is the economy marker, not the policy, not the DP, which is not domestic policy, but is like development point. Okay, let's keep looking. Example, let's say domestic policy of the Tsardom of Russia is 2 cards more, and economy marker is in -3 victory point box, which is all the way to the end. Moreover, economy DP marker is in 2 DP, total 2. What's this? In removal of auxiliary markers, it must be moved back. Must remove from national space 3 famine. Economy and domestic changes as follows. Economy DP marker goes back to the 0. The marker should be moved 1 more box to the left, but it's impossible, so domestic policy is lowered by 1 level. Now it is 1 card more. Nothing changes with the development points on this. This is what caused that problem. And now I'm like, I found something that disagrees with this, and I don't know which one is meant. Is the collapse supposed to be this weird kind of severe thing where it doesn't count back, or is the example from before, which I found before, not long ago, on this very day, and this very day is the hard part here. I mean, there's a reason I can't fucking get through this and get started on it. I can't find it now, because there's no reference. The rules are contained in the fucking examples and they contradict each other. That's the problem. And, there's no reference into the examples. Here we go. Because the Ottoman Empire has no economic development points to lose, the economy is affected. Economy marker is moved 1 box to the left. Now it is in +1 fund. Moreover, the military economy domestic policy track economy DP is put in the 3 DP total, i.e. it moves back, jumps to 4, and moves back another 1, because it can never really be in that 5 space according to this set of rules, or this particular 2 examples here. This example here is where I got the other conception, which is that only the big marker moves, and you stay at the 0 level, and you stay at the edge, tottering at the edge. I think the first examples are the correct ones. But they're in contradiction, and that is disturbing. But okay, let's leave that alone. Let's go back to this weirdness about religion, okay? Because this doesn't work like these other tracks. And I pointed this out before. During your own operation, you play operations point card with a plus sign. After spending the points on other actions, the plus sign is used, well, should be maybe used, because you're allowed to move any of the DP markers 1 box to the right. See 6.9.11, which is what I was just looking at, and doesn't talk about religion in specific, but gives some examples of how this works, which don't match the other examples. Player points out a heretic space which has connection with spaces of superpower's dominant religion. This may be an option. Player rolls a die. If the result is equal to the current number, equal or lower to the current number of religious development points, the conversion is successful. Control marker is flipped. Marker religion DP goes back to start. If it's higher, conversion is unacceptable, unsuccessful. The marker moves back a space. Here's what I think the way to make this make any sense at all, because otherwise you'd just be bopping back and forth on the 1 box. Is that the player may, and given the grammatical issues that the game has, player points out heretic space, could be read as this is their option, right? The player may choose not to make a chance. Because you only have a 1 in 6 chance, and it will go back to 0 whether you succeed or fail, and you're most likely to fail. So you push this forward, and then the religion, I guess, can sit on the 5 space without any action taking place. Action only refers to the 3, to the economy track and to these boxes for cards and military bonuses. That's the only way I can make sense out of this. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to do the lesser version of decline, where if your economy falls back, you don't stay here, you fall back to the 5 and then drop to the 4 box, because the 0 and the 5 are essentially the same. Okay? Why did I need to know that? Jesus, I don't remember. Because I'm looking at all of this, and I had a plus card, and I was thinking about using it that way. Oh boy. Highlights the kind of struggle to face this kind of rule set, right? I'm sure most of you have done this before in the past, where you broke out a game that you're not really that familiar with, either to play solo and give it a tryout, or with opponents, and it just comes to time after time of what the hell do they mean? It happens, especially if you're looking in the dark corners of the hobby, right? Shit like not just my EU and Le Grand Guerre, but much lesser stuff like Hammer of Thor, which apparently is by the same designer wrote the piece of crap game that I got sent by that bad seller I wanted to highlight. No customer service at all, essentially. But anyway, this is the kind of fight that you have to make with yourself. Now, even Empires in Arms, which has a huge community around it, has a few cases like this, right? I feel like, with this, it would have been easier to get things more nailed down. Empires in Arms has its issues, just like EU and Le Grand Guerre do, in terms of just being this humongous... It is a fairly complex game that not enough effort was put into it. And I would guess, if you're looking at like WIF before like 4th edition, there probably are similar problems in it. ADG, well, not Amarillo, Australian Design Group, whatever, I think they're ADG as well. Amarillo is ADB. Just, there's a looseness to their rules that I think makes it very easy, just like with this, to run into issues. Now, you have to remember, Empires in Arms went through the Avalon Hill treatment, which can usually nail down some of the worst cases. So I'm guessing that 1st edition of Empires in Arms that I still regret not getting, I could have had it for like $5. I know it. And it had some beautiful aspects to it. But I'm like, well, I already own it, and the rules are in better shape. But it was really cool to see that the 1st edition was just, it had some interesting facets to it. But yeah, I am guessing that 1st edition of Empires in Arms was in as bad a shape as 7 Ages is. And that, early editions of WIF, I think I first played around 4th edition. And there were still a few little quirky things in it, but, by that point, everything gets kind of ironed out. But man, it's just painful when you're facing this kind of stuff for the first time. And here, the level of abstraction in this game, it's hard to tell. You can't just rely on reason and logic, because there is a good argument for collapse to really mean this sort of domino-like collapse. That's even what it's called, is collapse and crisis, rather than sort of a slow degradation that might happen. But anyway, let me try to get one card out from each player and keep going. Sweden's back is turned. I can ask them, I guess, how many cards you got, Sweden? And they're going to tell me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 of those cards are going to be used up on the Vasa situation. So that's only 3 cards left. I'm going to go for them. How am I going to go for them? It's a good question. I could move this garrison forward immediately. Okay. Attrition. Attrition is what I want to understand for this. So manpower of 12 or more. Right now my manpower is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so I don't want to pull that unit in. I want to move 2 spaces so that I'm in national territory still. I don't want to spend this card. I could spend this card, give myself some bonus. Yeah. So the pluses aren't just for religion, they're for everything. So I'm going to spend this card, which is not one of my specials. And, oh shit, but it's a plus card. Hold on. I have some more battery back. It's a plus card. I don't want to use it. If I was low on battery, I was going to just call it and go up. So, geez, I don't know. So the reason I want 2 is to move my army up to the border, then recruit troops, and only take a little bit of attrition. Although maybe I don't particularly even want to take attrition. Ruler's Disease is something that I'd like to play against the Swedes and weaken them, if that's the case. But maybe not. Maybe I need those points. I don't need declaration of war. I don't want to play the plus card because I might want the flexibility of throwing a second card in, but I don't want to do that quite yet. So what if I play a 3? What can I do with an additional point? Again, am I getting this right with the plus cards? In the case of playing a plus side, after using operational points, you can move additional tracks. It's the only time you can move them is with a plus card. And I don't want to do it just for that. What else can I do with a point? I could grab a city. I can move on the Cossacks control track. Maybe 232. Do I need to do something to be able to do that? I don't know. Luckily, there's a reference for that. May play as an event Cossacks under control card. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Oh wait, let me see. Maybe I'm not reading this. When marker is in 3 blocks, player may play the card. Huh. You know, I might get in a fight with Poland over the Cossacks, but I don't have anything else to really do with a 3-point card. I don't want to... I like this card. Increase domestic policy by 1 level. Move your economy marker 1 box to the left. I don't know. I picked it as an event for a reason. To get that out of my hand and whatnot. But maybe I don't want to do that. But I sure the hell don't want to declare war on anyone. even though I have a provocation, I think, in here. So, yeah, let's do this. Let's move 1, 2. No attrition because my army is okay. Now, I've got a unit there. I'm not putting it in my army because I don't think I want to move it. And I'm going to move the Cossacks control marker just so that I fucking get my thing done, what I want done. And excuse me. Oh, fuck. All right. So that gets me out of the Russian action and into the Turks. Piece of plastic to put over this. It's a little looser than I like, but I had a couple lying here. I had this one, but this is so wrinkled up, it's not going to do anything good for me. I used to have tons of them, and I presumably still do, in my mom's basement, where my old SFB stuff is. But I don't tend to use those much. But again, photocopying probably isn't going to work well. I might give it a shot, I don't know. Okay. And that puts me on the Turks. This cough is fucking horrible, but it's just not going to go away. Myself with one of the problems I have with these games, and it's clearly much worse solo than it is opposed, but I've got these reaction cards, and with the size of the hands, it's really hard to tell. So he's got a difficult march card, which you play on an army at the beginning of its movement. Now, this is weird because, again, movement is kind of not well defined, right? And we had this situation where, hey, when does attrition take place? Is it on every move? And the way they discern it is before movement, player can combine 2 armies, first of all, 2 weakened combat units. But also under march attrition, if the sum of manpower ratings of moving combat units is 12 or more, 1 loss it must be suffered when movement is finished. Well, this card uses the same word, movement. Play on the army beginning its movement. Until the end of the impulse, the player controlling it must spend 1 operational point more for each entered space. First of all, I don't know what that means. Like, what is the beginning of its movement? When you declare that you're spending an operational point for moving, can the player then decide, okay, I've spent 1, I'm done, and not move forward? Or are they forced to spend 2 to move forward? Or whatever. Maybe they don't have the points to. What happens? I think they should be, I feel like they should be allowed to abort the movement when they find out that it's problematic, and do other things. But yeah, there was some other, but the fact that this is a reaction card, that I have to play it during the opposing player's turn, is going to lead me. So I should probably be looking at the Swedes and saying, hey, do I have something that would screw with, and I have an advantageous terrain, but do I have something that would screw with the Russian move there? Of course, then there's the question of, am I allowed to play it? Because this says I have to discard a card for the next 2 impulses. What if I played that late enough that I couldn't? What happens then? I don't know. Those are more edge case type things that I don't really expect to be a problem. You know what? I need to break. Okay, so we are on the Turkish turn. I will figure it out. I can't keep going. My batteries are almost dead. This one's failing to charge. And and being animated is causing my cough to get worse. So I'll come back down, finish the rest of this first impulse for each player, and then I think we'll be loading this up, and we'll go through more of this detailed agony, really, because you know, the game might be fantastic. I may end up loving it, but this is fucking agony trying to figure it out. And again, the thing is, it is this more abstracted style of game that is harder to come to, the kind of conclusions that you can come to, at least in Le Grand Guerre. I find it a little bit, I find it a little harder, I found EU to be more difficult because sometimes it just wasn't clear what the designer was trying to do. And that's so much of a broader scope, etc. Where, things like stacking in that game barely, they don't make sense. You have to make up your rules for them. You have to make up what the rules mean. There's no answer. Screwed up schedule and my addiction kept me away for the entirety of the day. I gotta get some heat on down here. I turn it on in my room every so often. I haven't made the hey, turn it on the main part of the house. But anyway, it's getting kind of chilly at night here. I don't think I had made any decisions or any real thoughts having the Ottomans. I think I just went on my rant about cards or something. So I'm going to start looking at them and figure out what the hell they want to do. They're currently at war with the Habsburgs, Austrians, Germans, whatever you want to call them. And I don't know, I feel so stuck. I feel so at a loss of what to do. And that's often the case when first looking at a new, especially a CDG type game where you just have, and you have such a big hand in this one. The concern I have, and if there was a compendium of events or something like that available, or if I had a great deal of awareness of the game, I could take more note of that. And maybe understand it better. And I may end up peeking at the card to see what it is. But I couldn't do this if this was my first play, right? If this was a real play with opposed players and whatever, without some sort of summary of what all the event cards do. I'm sitting on this Loyal Vassal card. No. I'm sitting on, I have the Loyal Vassal. That may allow me to, so that's one thing. That may allow me to prevent the ambitions of Michael or whatever in, I don't know. But I also have Calling the Vassal, where I can select a minor state, put its troops on on its capital, and then I can use them as my own. And that would also allow me to move a point on here, which I don't know how much I want to do, and it would also allow me to play another card to move. It feels like a big set of cards to play right at this point. This army is already big, which means since I'm doing attrition only at the start of its move, or when it completes its movement, I could conceivably bring another army into play with it. That could actually be this, though, or a big portion of it, and bring more of the Istanbul army forward. So I really don't know. I'm having a hard time deciding what I fucking want to do. This looks safe. I've got a lot of battle cards that I kind of want to use for that. I'm having a really hard time finding something that I want to play to be able to do the things I want to do, right? Now, this one is painful. If I could weaken my leader twice, though, I think he dies, which would be in my best interests. I get a slightly better leader He improves domestic policy, but just weakening him isn't good enough. So I want to hold on to that and not make the decision on that until I see, is somebody going to weaken him, or is something going to weaken him? And, oh, geez. I mean, I don't want to play this, because as long as I don't play this, I can play with the taters and bring them into play. This could be useful. This could be useful. This could be useful. Everything looks like, wow, I want this maybe for the war. And I don't know. Like, I have to play something. Hope I don't get a rebellion. A 1-point card doesn't get me much. I don't have any fund markers, so I can't use this likely. So if I play that, I can move. Anything over 12 is a problem. 2, 4, 6, 8, 12. 12 or more. I can move this whole force up to join my other force and create a monster. This is what I'm going to do. I've already got a column shift there, but I'm close to the edge. My economy, it would be nice if I got that up. Domestic policy would be nice if I got that up. That's a full level. Okay. So I'm going to just play this. I'm going to move these, all of them. I don't think they can enter Istanbul. I think that's what this arrow means. And I don't want to play, like, I definitely don't want to play 2 cards at this point. And that costs me 1 loss when the movement is finished. In this way, any combat unit can be weakened or eliminated. It's the player's choice. These are big and cost a lot of manpower for what it's worth. And now that gets me a fucking huge army. Well, you know, 18 or more. Oh. This column's awfully big. Maybe I don't want to do this. Uh-oh. So what do I have? 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, let's just bring the whole damn thing. If we're going to have a huge army, let's have a huge fucking army. And now I get a +1 on something. I want to make sure that my military doesn't wrap around and get me hurt. So that'll be the edge there. This ends up as a discard. And that gets me to the Holy Roman Emperor. If that hadn't been a combination of forces, I might have played this difficult march reaction. Well, I might retroactively play it, but fact of the matter is I would have to figure out what's here. That would prevent the collection of that army. Not that that's that big a deal, but this force would have to take attrition to move the extra space then, or I'd have to play another card, or which I guess I can do. I don't know. Or I don't know. There's a whole bunch of stuff that this would have caused problems for. On the other hand, it's a plus card. Those are painful. I'm on economy, move economy 1 box to the right. Your domestic policy is decreased by a level. You get a fund. If you play it as operations, you lose a fund. If you don't have a fund, You must, in given priority, discard a randomly chosen card or move economy marker 1 box to the left. Which means I'd have to save a card if I want this 3 points to use as a card. I could save a shitty card towards the end, although I don't have anything too bad. Like I don't have any ones. I used that up as my mercenary purchase. I'm a little worried about my army moving forward here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I kind of don't want to. This isn't all that good. I've got an answer, which is the war with Persia. That would force a whole bunch of the Ottoman army to go away. But then what? You know, he's within striking distance. I think I do that. Most of these event cards, this one doesn't have a counter to put in play. The card itself serves, so I don't really mind that. I just expected there to be a counter for some reason. So, what do I got here? Place this card next to the board. The player controlling the Ottomans must immediately put on the card units with total of manpower rating of 30 or more. In ruler's domestic policy phase, each unit on the card suffers a loss, and the survivors are placed in Istanbul. So this cuts my danger by quite a bit. Now, the question comes to mind of whether I can use my taters, or if I had vassal units aligned with me, and I may or may not. I'm not sure what their status is. Yeah, I don't think I'm allowed to play with those troops without calling the vassals specifically, which I could have done, but oh, this is interesting. Yeah, I'm on a different layer down, so there's no Turks. It's diagonal and prevents anything ugly from happening there. I guess I'm going to have to just pull units there. And it's a manpower rating of 30 or more. That's going to be a big hunk of troops. I'm allowed to play a plus card with an event after it. So this is all there is. But boy, have I weakened the Turkish army through this. And should be able to take advantage of this and get a good move here. And now we're going to go for the Polish forces. I got to look at the cards, figure out what the hell they're going to do. Problematic situation here. Let me make sure payment of Cossacks is on here. But if I hadn't noticed, if I hadn't had the registered Cossacks card, I might not have thought and remembered that I have to pay the Cossacks. And, you know, it's almost like there needs to be an additional play aid or something else on the play aid. To remind you, in this case, I have to pay a 3-point card if I don't play this. Now, there are effects like this intermingled with all the countries, or with many of them, I think, that I don't see it on anybody else. So maybe I'm lying there. Yeah, I think maybe this is the only one. But it's a pain in the ass to remember. And it feels like there needs to be something to bring that out more than just it being a thing here. You know, I mean, yeah, each player has to remember all the rules and whatever. But when there's rules that are going to penalize you if you don't take advantage of them, you know, that are going to be a significant penalty, or that are significant, you know, significant opportunities is one thing, but I see payment for Cossack service, and I think, I don't really need any Cossacks right now. But that's not what happens if I don't pay them, right? If I don't pay them, I don't know. Nothing happens. I just must. So, you know, what if I don't remember? What if I don't have a card? I don't know. And is always necessary that I'll have a 3-point card because I got one of these two. But yeah, you know, I could have well played all my 3-point cards and not gotten anything. So I'm going to do this just because it's definitely something I want to get out of the way. So I register the Cossacks. Let's see what the impact of that is. I got to be careful. Make sure that the draw deck is in between my hand and the other. Everybody else is following that. So now I look for this. I put a registered Cossacks in play. Play to end the payment of Cossack service. Shown unit is immediately added. These are Cossacks? That doesn't look like a Cossack to me. Isn't that? No, I guess not. Very close in color. I don't rightly know. At the beginning of each play, shown unit is immediately added to any of your armies. Well, I don't really need it. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 2, 4, 6. I'm going to put it up with Army A. Not the optimal place, perhaps. This card, I'm going to shove this up here. We're going to probably get too many cards up there, but I want to keep track of those. I got to swap batteries. The thing about all that is that gets me back up to the beginning, and I'll keep track of things, of the second player's impulse. And this is where I was planning on cutting this video. I know you're not seeing much in terms of the play yet, but you kind of see that, hey, the CDG functionality works as you expect, more or less, in this style of game. It's all the other stuff that's kind of weird, right? It's all the other stuff that's new and different. Although the size of the hands I am finding challenging. I'm used to, you know, a 5 or 6 card hand, and here instead we're looking at much, much larger hands from which to make all these decisions. I don't remember, Virgin Queen may have gone with the bigger hand size as well, and I just find that difficult. I find that really more difficult. But anyway, up this one goes. You've seen some of my struggles so far. We're going to continue on, and you know, I hope play through the end of it if I don't expire before then. But I am feeling a little better today than I was yesterday. But on the other hand, I'm talking less. All right, up it goes. To mention the negative point, this is probably all I play today. Tonight, whatever. It's already like the wee hours of the morning on Friday. And with the hours I've been holding, again, my addiction sucked all the time that I had awake today. I got up at like, I don't know, 3 or something like that. And with the hours I've been keeping, getting up that late, I have enough time to play a little bit of my addiction and then get ready and go out dancing. And right now there's an event going on in that computer addiction that, like, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to come down here. And then Saturday, I wiped out from overindulging. Of course, I may be too sick to go out, but if I'm not, I count on, like, Friday I'm not going to be able to go out. Saturday I'm not going to be able to come down here much. Or Friday I'm not going to be able to play. Saturday I'm not going to be able to come down here and play much. And then Sunday I probably have to do shopping, which is with my little cart and takes, you know, 3-4 hours. And 3 or 4 hours is what I have away from my addiction awake. I've been sleeping a lot, and there's my addiction. So it may be several days before I get to the next round of card play, which is certainly less than optimal for a game that's supposed to be as interactive as this one is, you know.